Welcome to the Force to Flow Masterclass. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tristan Storm. I am a life alignment coach who is absolutely passionate about helping and supporting people to live in alignment with life in all aspects. So, not just at home or in business, but really in all aspects of life. So, in today's class, we're going to be looking at really unpacking what hustle culture is, the real sort of dark side of hustle culture. I'll be sharing a little bit about my own experience with it, talking about burnout, and then, exploring that some alternatives. We tend to want a pendulum swing to extremes. So, we go from hustle culture to maybe slow living. And while each of them have merit, for me, there's always a middle ground. That's why I'm so passionate about alignment. Alignment is not this end result where everything is, all hunky dory, all our ducks in a row. It really is about being able to notice when we're moving to extremes and being able to touch those extremes and be able to have the tools to bring ourselves back into alignment with life. So, what is hustle culture, right? What is your experience with hustle culture? What are some things that you've heard? Please do drop some comments below. I love reading your comments. When we look at, just kind of this narrative around being a go-getter, grinding, working really, really hard, having your eyes only on your goals and, nothing else matters, go for it. There's a lot of beautiful things to that sentiment. Which we'll get into in a moment. But there's also, like with everything, there's a cost. And with this whole hustle, it really is a culture. It's become a culture, of a culture really is when we buy into a narrative and we believe that this is the only way to do something. So, one of the main problematic issues with hustle culture is that this is the only way to achieve success. I know that when I started out in my career, that's really that's the messaging I got is if I'm not working, 28 hours a day, then I'm not going to achieve the success that I truly want. And, for those of you, again, that don't really know much about me or my story, I'm going to share that with you in a moment because I feel like for so many of us, our stories are quite similar. We have, like with every hero's journey, we have these high moments of achievement and peak, and then we have really severe obstacles and hardships for us to overcome in order to achieve a sense of greatness or to find victory. And so, in that sense, obviously the content of our experiences are different, but really the journey tends to be the same. So I find by sharing and really kind of getting honest about our own experiences, social media tends to put a filter on everything, and we don't really get to see the making behind somebody's success. So we hear all of these amazing success stories, but how often do we really get to unpack or hear what's gone on behind that, like what's gone on behind the scenes, the sleepless nights, the intensive anxieties, the meltdowns, the loss, the pain, the grief, all of these things behind somebody who we maybe look up to and admire or think about being, somebody who's very successful in their life, in their career, and in whatever it is that they're doing. And so, I really kind of want to pull the curtains back on that and for us to spend the next bit of time here together having real conversations. Unfiltered, raw, no bullshit conversation. So this idea of the hustle, right, like I said, has some really wonderful sentiment. On its opposite extreme is kind of the hey shua, like just kind of manifest it, do your affirmations, have a vision board, and all your dreams will come true. And again, these are two extremes, right? We know that in physical reality, it requires physical action. And so, when we're sitting in these two camps, and I want you to just take a moment and really see or feel into which school of thought you are aligning yourself with more. I definitely identify more as a sort of spiritual person, and I would like to think that I am really living in the flow of life most of the time. But it took a lot of getting really, really honest with myself to realize that I was actually embodying more of the hustle culture, even though I identify more as being more spiritual and wanting to be in tune with life. So I just invite you for a moment, perhaps just closing your eyes, just landing, dropping into the space here together. And just take a moment to really feel into, what are you aligning with? So I'm going to describe maybe in a little bit more detail these two camps, or these two edges of the extreme. We look at, let's start with, the real, spiritually aligned, which really feels like, I'm doing all the things. I'm doing my affirmations. I'm doing the shadow work. I'm doing the inner work. And still, I'm not getting the results. And that makes me feel really disheartened. And it makes me feel, yeah, like I have a bit of a faith crisis, because I'm doing all the things, but I'm not making the money I want. I'm not achieving the goals. I'm not having the relationships that I want to have. And just really feel into that for a moment. Because with this school of thinking, there's some nuances that have been left out, because we're told with that school of thought that if we do the inner work and we do our affirmations, then we'll manifest it. So why hasn't it been made real? Why isn't it here? What am I doing wrong? But the nuance that is forgotten, or the juicy info, that maybe the memo that we missed, is that it requires, everything in physical reality requires action. And that we can do as many affirmations or vision boards as we want, but if we're not actually taking action towards something, we're not going to get it. And it's a pretty bitter pill to swallow. Okay, so just feeling into that for a moment, and then leaning over here to the other side, to this other extreme of the hustle. I've got my goals. I've got, every day I'm working, into the night. I'm barely sleeping. I'm just going for it. I'm putting everything into it. And maybe if you're like me, you've experienced 1, 2, maybe 3 burnouts, and you're exhausted all the time, and you have brain fog, and you're literally having to force yourself to sit down at your computer to do the work, to do the things, because that's what you're told, right? You're told that if you put in the effort, then the results are inevitable. So if you're sitting here today and, maybe you've achieved some level of success, and, if we put enough effort into something, we're going to see some results. But again, at what cost? So for me, that cost was the cost of my health. It was the cost of my family. And yeah, really kind of misaligning myself to what's truly important to me, to my values, to what I say is important, to what I believe is important. And so the missing memo with the hustle culture is that no amount of brute force, if there is no resonance behind, no intent behind, it will miss the mark. It won't land, right? And so if you, whatever industry you're in, whatever niche, whatever business you're in, whether you are self-employed, whether you work for a company, really just kind of leaning in and asking yourself right now, what is the energy? What is the why behind what I'm doing? Am I just posting on social media because the algorithm wants me to, but I'm not really getting much response? That indicates that there is no real resonance behind what it is that I am doing or saying or showing up for. And again, that can be a bitter pill to swallow, because it's so frustrating to put in all this energy, all this time, and just be ticking all the boxes, and we're not necessarily yielding the results, or we are, but at a huge deficit, at a huge cost. So for me, that was, like I said, the cost of my health. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 12 years, had my own multiple businesses, and yeah, I've shifted around quite a few times, but coaching has really been my predominant focus and my predominant passion. And that driving force was, I want to support people, I want to help people, I want to help people help themselves, right? And when I had my first burnout, it was so devastating, and I did not want to share any details of it because I felt like that would mean, yeah, kind of like I was a fraud, right? Is here I am, preaching life alignment, and yet behind the scenes, I'm completely adrenally fatigued. I'm exhausted all the time, and I'm hardly seeing my family because I'm just behind my laptop, behind my phone all the time. And so, yeah, I really had a lot of shame around that, and really tried to kind of keep that all hidden, and kept trying to just show up. Just show up, right? Because that's what I'm told. If I just show up with a smile and do the things, then I'll yield the results. And I wasn't. I really, really wasn't. At that time, I had a few clients. I felt like I was busy all the time. But when I looked at what I was actually doing, yeah, I didn't feel like there was much substance to it at all. And that really, really got me questioning what my definition of success is. What is your definition of success? I want you to take a minute. If you are watching the replay on this, pause the video, right? Pause it, get out a pen, get out a piece of paper, write down the word success in big bold letters. And next to it, I want you to write down all of the things that you believe success to be. So, maybe it's that nice house, that fancy car, a lot of accolades and awards. Really just write down, unfiltered, whatever you believe success to be. So, my initial definition of success was really just being the most productive person I could be, and making sure that I was focusing on putting out a lot of content and making my Instagram as pretty as possible. And yeah, getting followers and getting likes and getting engagement and money, getting lots of money and getting lots of clients. And while those things were happening, it wasn't in any way creating a sense of fulfillment in me. So, got the big, beautiful house. Why do I still feel unfulfilled? Got the cars. Why am I still feeling unfulfilled? Hitting my financial goals. Why am I still so miserable and unhappy? And again, as you take a moment to write down what you believe success to be, notice the words that you're writing down. Notice what impressions of success you've been given, right? Whether it be from your family, what you're told to want, whether it be from social media, whether it be from peer pressure. Are these your definition of success? Is this what truly creates happiness and joy for you as an individual? Just take a moment and let those land, right? Because perhaps there are some examples that you have in your life currently of achieving that level of success. Maybe you wanted to study a course and you got a degree, or maybe you wanted to buy that house and you bought it. Has that success given you full body, like, yes, a sense of absolute fulfillment and joy for that achievement? Or are you just on to the next thing, the next thing, the next biggest thing? So I got this house, but now I want that house. I got this car, but now I want that thing. If that's the case, then your definition of success is probably not attuned or aligned to your value system, your unique value system. What is truly important for you, right? So when I was having that first burnout and I did this exercise, I realized that all the things, all these measures of success were not giving me the one thing that I value probably most of all, which is freedom, right? I became an entrepreneur because I wanted freedom. I wanted time freedom. I wanted schedule flexibility. I wanted to go on holidays with my family without asking permission. But here I was, completely bound to my business, completely tethered to my laptop. So when I really, really got clear and started to unpack what are the values that would truly, truly, truly mean that I'm being successful, right? It would mean if freedom was the value, then I would look around in my life and feel free, right? And obviously there's some aspects, things that we do have to do, and that's fine. We'll speak about that in a moment, how to kind of move out of that force and back into choice. But that realization that this idea of success that I had fabricated was not bringing joy or fulfillment in any way, shape, or form, and actually was leading to, I was sitting in chronic health conditions, chronic illnesses. My gut was completely inflamed, my body was aching all the time, I couldn't think straight. And so the more I forced and pushed myself, my body, because you must remember, your body is an ally. So when we get sick, when we get unwell, it's not our bodies trying to mess with our productivity or mess with our hustle. It's begging us, really, really begging us to slow down and to reevaluate this path that we're on. And it's truly an invitation to reassess and to realign ourselves. So the first burnout, I didn't really go into as much detail as that, or as many realizations. It required a second time, right? Because I wasn't listening, I was ignoring. I was like, but this is what I'm told. I'm told that in order to run a successful business, I have to just do whatever it takes at whatever cost. And, I'm building it now. I'm young, my body can handle it. My body was like, no, slow the fuck down. Stop what you're doing. Because this force, this pressure is breaking you. And so really that second, only really on the second round, thank you, body, did I start to ask these more pertinent questions of, okay, what is the way in which I want to run this business? How do I really want to serve, right? And it starts with you. It starts with the way that you're showing up for yourself. So take a minute and ask yourself, by that definition of success that you have on that piece of paper, are you really and truly honoring yourself, or are you punishing yourself? I know that for myself, forcing myself late at night, my eyes are blurring and I'm forcing myself to finish a blog post or a part of a course or some email campaign, funnel, all these things that I've been told I have to do in order to have a thriving, successful business. I'm sitting foggy-eyed, 12 o'clock at night, away from my family, my kids already asleep, trying to be successful. And I was completely miserable, and feeling very lonely, feeling very disconnected from all the things that I say are important to me. And so, yeah, that really was kind of, I put my feet completely on the brakes. And again, as humans, we tend to dabble in the extremes. And I truly believe that we do that in order to learn our edges so that we can come into greater alignment, right? Not to live in one of these two realms, because neither of them is sustainable, right? So being in total overdrive, hyper focus mode all the time is not sustainable, because we burn out, we run out of fuel, we become exhausted. But also being in pause mode creates stagnation. It creates another type of disease, right? That stagnation, nothing's moving. We feel heavy, we feel lethargic, we feel shameful that we're not actually doing what our soul is asked us to do, right? That calling, that yearning, that drive that we all have to varying degrees. When we're just driving pedal to the metal and we're pushing, forcing, we lose sight of why we're doing it. But when we take our foot completely off, or we slam on brakes and we do nothing, we're also ignoring that yearning, that desire, whatever it is, that uniqueness that you have to offer the world. We can't just live in pause mode, right? Bills need to be paid, children need to be fed, the world keeps turning. Even if I'm burnt out and want to lie in bed, I still have to do things. And so kind of going into that other extreme of pausing everything, of stopping everything that I was doing, even canceling sessions and just being like, I cannot, I have nothing more to give. And just really started to reassess things, filled my own cup, slowed down completely. And it's kind of like being on holiday, right? It's such a wonderful space to be on when you're kind of just lying down, just chilling, going at your own pace. But there's this part of the back of your mind, you realize that this is not also not a sustainable thing. And there's quite a lot of grief in that because we've been pushing, we feel like I need to hold on to this pause, this holiday, this break. And even though I know it's going to come to an end, I want to hold on harder. And in my case, it was really the body responding to that. So that pause kept being prolonged because I physically did not have the energy. And that was my body's way of supporting that desired break. But neither of these two modes are sustainable. There are no way to live. And at any given moment, we require access to both. You know, there's some moments that, yeah, we got to hustle. We got to put our foot down and go for it. But we can't live in that space. And there are some moments that we need to completely unplug and unwind and switch off to reset, to recalibrate. But also not a sustainable, we can't live like that, right? We're not engaging in the world if we're living in pause mode. And so really that is what birthed this masterclass, is recognizing that, okay, neither of these two modes, I've explored them both in depth. The hustle culture, while it has some really wonderful features, can also be really toxic. And same with this kind of slow living, just unplugging, just really going at this pace. For me, that might work for some people. That's amazing. For me personally, and perhaps if you're watching this, maybe you resonate with this as well, is that space. If I have a yearning and a desire and a knowingness that I'm here for a purpose, for a reason, I can't just switch off and go off into the forest and unplug from everything, because my energy desires to have an impact and an imprint and to leave a legacy, right? And that's not the case, right? That's not the case for everybody, which is great. But if you're sitting here today, you probably have often wondered to yourself, what other option do I have? Because I only know these two extremes. And by that definition of success that you've written down, you're going to be in one or the other mode. So again, I want you to reflect on that. What definition of success would you need to have in order to truly come into, or at least start to think about this new space, this new concept, right? Because even the word flow is wonderful, but sometimes implies that there's no oomph, there's no drive, there's no to it, which isn't exactly true if we really look at a river. There's a dynamicness. It's not just pause. It's not just a pond that's stagnating. It's flow, it's current, it's energy, it's movement, it's dynamic. And so as we start to move from this idea of force, push, grind, pressure, and we start to look at the operating system that we have that gets us into that mode, and start to understand what flow really, really entails. It is not, I'm waving my white flag and I'm just totally surrendered to like wherever life, I'm just going with the flow. Again, that's a misconception of this idea. If you really look at nature and we start to see the reflections of ourselves in the seasons and the way things ebb and flow, right? We're not in a perpetual summer. We're not in a permanent winter. We are cyclical. And we need to start to work with those cycles. And for those of you that are watching, females that are watching, our hormone cycle is so cyclical. We are not designed for hustle culture. This is why we're finding more and more women who are, we want to do the same. We want to work 9 to 5. We want to go out, they want to do things. That's fabulous. But our biology is not designed. And I know that that's going to be a little bit triggering for some of you that are watching, and that's fine. Look at those triggers, right? Because if you are thriving in the hustle, great, then you would not be sitting here watching this. Okay, so you probably are trying to hustle, do all the things, but you keep burning out or you keep feeling completely fatigued. That's because we're biologically not designed to be on all the time. Even if we just look for a moment at our hormone cycles, between day 5 and 15, our bodies start to get a spike in testosterone. And that really is where that go, that force, that yes, I can do, I'm like my most productive in that time. And then as our progesterone starts to kick in, starts to slow everything down, that's just before our bleed. Everything starts to slow down. Our energy is lower. We're more introspective. We're kind of going into, autumn into winter. And we cause the most harm when we try and push and grind, when the body is asking us to slow down. And you're probably sitting here going, yeah, but Tristan, I have a 9 to 5 job. I work. I have to just do the things. And this is really your invitation to start to notice how you do things. We all have things to do. We're all busy. We all have 24 hours in a day. How we start to work with life will determine whether we're in force or whether we're in flow. Okay, so let's really get into it. Let us get really, really clear. And this is going to be very different for everybody, right? We might have, like I said, we'll have these similarities because we're human and we're part of the human experience. If we're female, we're going to have similarities. If we're male, we're going to have similarities. But just starting to look really at the nuances of the force, right? The hustle, which literally makes us focus. We become objective focused. We are looking at the destination. We really become quite fixated on the goals, and we're just going for it. Doesn't matter what the cost is, we're grinding. And even if we look at our relationship to, it's interesting, I often get very curious about language being a reflection of our consciousness. And if we look at just the terminologies, the words we use around the hustle, 9 to 5 work, right? We use words like earn. I need to earn, right? What do we put ashes in? And earn, right? Weekdays, right? Monday mornings, mourning, grief, right? Being able to grind, have a job. It's force, it's pressure. So just really looking at how that's even busy, the word busy, busyness, business, right? We need to be busy, we need to be productive. All of these words are going to activate those states of being, the modes that we get ourselves into, the headspace we get ourselves into, how we operate. So if I'm in that mode, the hustle mode, and I feel like, I've got a job, I have to earn my living. I have to earn my living. No, babe, you're here. You deserve to be here, deserve to be alive. The very fact that you're alive qualifies you. You don't have to earn it. Even making a living. What does that mean? To make it, right? Oh, I've made it. What is it? What is that destination point? And again, for most of us, and if you look back at that piece of paper of what you believe success to be, most of us have a very vague concept of what success means. And if we've achieved it to some level and we're still not fulfilled, then it's not truly serving us. That definition is not truly aligned to us. And it will never, no amount of money, no amount of houses, cars, will ever give us that sense of fulfillment if it's not truly what we want. So for me, freedom. Does freedom might mean for somebody having multiple properties so that we can have freedom to travel. It might mean, owning one and feeling like it's paid off and, having that sense of freedom. Like I said, this is where the individual part comes in, because we all have a very unique blueprint of, input that we've had, messages that we've received about what that looks like. What does a good life look like for you? Not what it looks like for somebody else. What does it look like for you? And how often do we really actually sit and get very clear, not on the things that we think will make us happy and then we get them and they don't, right? But really the undercurrent of what it means to truly live a successful life, yeah? So hustle mode. Some of the symptoms of that would be, yeah, burning the midnight oil, right? And there's a difference between, and I really want my intention for you in this masterclass is to walk away with just starting to feel the subtleties of these two modes. So when I get into like my obsessive hyper focus mode, it is pure joy and creativity. And so I know that space. It's almost like time is suspended. Nothing else matters. Like I'm there. That's really that flow state that we're wanting to be able to activate and access more intentionally and more consciously. The hustle illusion is I'm focused, I'm ticking the boxes, I'm going for it. But energetically, I want you to start to notice, how does that feel in your body, right? Does it feel like there's a sense of urgency? A couple of months back, another masterclass on knowing the difference between survival and thrival mode. Some very similar concept here. This hustle force mode, if we really peel back the glitz and the glam and all the labels and all the things we've stuck to it, identified with it, underneath it, the undercurrent is scarcity and fear, right? If I'm operating from scarcity, lack, and fear, my body is going to be in that sense of survival mode. My cortisol levels are up. I am pushing, right? There isn't a real trust or surrender that I'm going to manifest the outcomes that I want, because I have to make it happen. I have to force it. It has to be. But remember, life isn't responding necessarily to what we're doing. It's responding to our resonance, to our frequency. Everything is frequency. So if I am in my hustle mode, but my frequency is tuned into stress, anxiety, fear, lack, scarcity, that is the vibrational signature that I am sending out into the ether, into the universe, into a multiverse. And I'm going to get that. Those are the results I'm going to get. So even though I'm getting maybe material successes, I'm feeling more anxiety, more fear, more money's not enough. I need more, 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 more. Why? Because the operating frequency is stress, anxiety, lack, scarcity. When we start to learn to work with the flow, we understand that we are really recalibrating that resonance, that signature vibration, to be one of deep trust that I'm going to do this thing and it's going to have an impact. It might not yield results right now, but the focus is on that resonance, on that recalibration of who I say I want to be, who I'm becoming, right? What it is that I'm offering. And so when we start to step into that flow space, like I said, it's a trust, it's an abundance, it's an expansiveness. And we can't be in both expansion and contraction at the same time. So think about hustle. I'm literally forcing. Force, pressure is creating a constriction. But yet my objectives are super expansive, right? Like all those goals are just really yummy and delicious and wonderful and expansive. But I'm operating from a contracted mode. It's very hard to yield expansive results from contraction. Making sense? Okay. So really feeling into, and I want you to just ask yourself, take some notes here. When you're in force, what does that look like for you? What does that feel like for you? What are the thoughts that you're thinking? So for me, it's like, I have to get this done. It has to be done. It must be done. Without really holding on to why. Why should I show up and do this masterclass? Why? It's just, no, it has to be done. I have to tick this box. There's a sense of urgency or a sense of lack. If I don't do this, then I won't get results. Nothing will happen. And there's an element of truth there, right? Because, like I said in the beginning, we live in physical reality, it requires physical action. So, without doing the things, I absolutely can't yield the results. But doing the things just for the sake of doing them does not necessarily yield the real results, the true results that will give us a sense of fulfillment and expansiveness and flow. So, what does it feel like for you when you're in that mode? How can you start to identify that you're in that hustle force mode? How does your body feel? Right? Where are we holding tightness and tension in the body? Is the neck feeling tense? Am I getting a headache? Right? Is my vision starting to blur? Is my lower back cramping? How can I start to identify what the body is saying? The body does not speak English, it speaks symptom, it speaks sensation. So, how can I start to listen to your body's unique shout? I'm in force mode. So, for me, my tummy would go into a knot, hold a lot of my anxiety in my belly, and in my chest I would feel like a shortness of breath, throbbing in my lower back, my poor little adrenals just pumping. I'd be living on coffee, lack of sleep and coffee, and just being driven by the checklist. So for you, what are some signs and symptoms that you can start to recognize? And again, your brain will keep defaulting there. It will keep operating on that level if there isn't another option that you believe would yield the same results, right? That's why that's why I had another burnout, right? Is because my brain did not have another operating system. There was no other way of being. It was just hustle or fail. Very black and white. Do these things or be unsuccessful. And nothing is that black and white. There is always a spectrum of color in between, multiple shades, right? So for you, how do you start to recognize when you're in that force? And what do you believe about being in that mode? So, really, and this is going to take, again, pause this video if you're watching the replay. Absolutely, force can lead in authenticity, right? So, I'm forcing myself to do something. I'm not aligned with it. I'm not truly, there's no, like I was saying earlier, there's no resonance. And people respond to resonance far more than they do to just doing the stuff. Oh, look at her, she's doing all the things. But I'm not resonating, right? So what defines the difference? If you, whatever niche you're in, whatever business you do, whatever it is, if you look at somebody else who's extremely successful, right, by whatever definition, extremely successful in what it is that they're doing, I want you to ask yourself, what is it about that person? What is it that you think that they're doing that's making them successful? Most of the time, it's something quite intangible, something very hard to describe. It's like, I just get a vibe. Oh, I just really like dig how she speaks. Or I really resonate to how she describes things. We're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, which is great, right? Because I want to speak to people who are aligned with the way that I see the world, the way that I describe it, the words that I use, and that there's a sense of resonance. So the more we're actually coming into getting into the nuances of the why behind, the intent behind, that starts to become the driving, not force, the driving flow. Okay? So just think about for a moment, what do you believe about the force mode that keeps you there? So it could be something like, well, it's the only way. That's how you achieve success. If I don't do it, no one will. That was a big program of mine, right? If I don't do it, no one will. Oh, the sleepless nights. If I don't do it, no one will. If I don't, the world will stop turning, right? And again, we never really allow ourselves to get new evidence for these beliefs because we don't pause long enough to drop it to actually see, what happened for me when I was in my pause mode, when I went to that other extreme, was I got so much support. People stepped in, people that I never thought would step in. My husband stepped in just the most fantastic, phenomenal, supportive way. I would not have let him before. because I was driving everything. And so the message that actually I can be supported by life, by people, I would never have gotten that evidence, right? Had I not. And again, we don't have to pendulum. That's again why I'm doing this masterclass. We don't have to live in those extremes in order to get this evidence. We can actually just test it in smaller ways. So, for you, what is that tick? What is that thing that keeps the driving force? We want to have drive. Please, let me be clear here. We need drive, we want fire, we want passion, we want zest. But the pressure and the force and that inauthenticity that comes from that space is not sustainable. We want to be able to access the drive, the inspiration, but that comes from creativity. It comes from connection. It comes from flow, far, far, far more than it comes from hustle. They've actually done some amazing, amazing scientific research on people that are overproductive, ironically, actually get less done, are less effective or efficient because they're just filling up the space with busyness, right? So I can be busy for the 12 hours or 8 hours that I'm awake, however long we're awake. I could be busy for all that time, but what am I actually doing that's moving the needle forward to get to where I truly want to be going? How much joy have I absorbed in the journey between now and where I want to be going? They've even in places that have four-day work weeks, they found that the quality of the work, the innovation, the creativity is far, far greater than when we're just having to slog and do something for the sake of doing it. And again, this, if you're working a 9 to 5, right, it's not in any way condemning that. It's about trying to find a different way of showing up for that, a different way just internally, right? What mode am I doing this work from? Today, so for example, we were speaking earlier about that cyclical nature, especially in women, is I know that I'm my most productive between days 5 and 15. So there's like a 10 days in the month that I am my most productive. I can get a month's work of stuff done in those 10 days. And so for the rest of the time, I'm still doing the things that need to be done every day, but not with as much gusto, right? With a bit more of a slower pace. And if we don't even experiment because, oh, I have to do this work, oh, deadlines, all these things, we don't even experiment. We're always going to be in that very unsustainable hustle mode. And if you haven't already, it comes at a huge cost. And no job is worth that cost, the cost of your health, the cost of your well-being, your family. Okay? So asking yourself that question, what is the belief that drives that mode? What do you believe will happen? Share down below. Let's unpack some of these belief constructs. Okay? So park that for a moment. Hustle mode. Then we come over here to this idea of flow. And even if you look at, it's quite interesting, if you look at wealth words, we say we're in liquidity, we pool our money together, right? We have currency, right? Money's pouring in, let's make it rain, right? There really is almost this water analogy to the language of wealth versus the language of scarcity and lack, like earn, hustle, grind, pushing it, right? So as we start to shift and start to explore this other mode, just noticing how we're using our language to determine which mode we're in, right? If I'm like, oh, I have to, I must, should, right? Those are all indicators that I'm in that force mode. We're wanting to start to come back into our greatest gift as human beings is free will choice. Greatest gift that we got given. Free will choice. Everything's a choice, even if it is an unconscious choice. right? Which is what I'm very passionate about, is making the unconscious conscious, so we can start to really understand what we're choosing. Because if we're choosing on some level this idea that we have to hold it all, that's the experience we're going to have. And life will keep giving us evidence to support that, right? Until we get in there and we clean it out. So when we start to shift to flow, and like I said, this flow, I want to be really clear, is not the hey shua, woo woo, go with the flow, right? Again, beautiful, 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 beautiful things in there, missing some memos about being in physical reality and about, yeah, being in the action of things, getting up, doing, contacting, messaging. It requires both of these. It requires both, but in a different way. And that's what we're getting to, right? So if we start to come into a flow state, flow with life, what would that feel like? So for some of you, you've touched it, right? You've had, even if it's one example, maybe you were painting, maybe you were creating a piece of jewelry, maybe you were singing, maybe you were playing outside with your kids. Maybe you've got an example of what it feels like when you're in flow, like real divine flow with life, when you feel in this moment completely fulfilled, right? And just like an inhale and an exhale, in order to keep us going, right, and keep us evolving, there has to be, on some level, a yearning, right? A desire for more, because it pulls us forward, it keeps us bettering ourselves. And that's what's beautiful about the hustle culture, right? Is that it's saying, like, yes, you have unlimited potential. Absolutely. You've got to tap into that potential. Yeah, absolutely. You've got a purpose, a drive, got to go for it. Get out of your way, go for it. All beautiful, beautiful sentiments, which we still want to have access to. When we're in flow with life, we're able to access that far, far, far more authentically with resonance. Okay? So if you have just, even if it's one little example of a moment where you felt in complete flow, in this moment, satisfied, satiated, thirst quenched. And like with everything, it's a fleeting moment. Just like pain is a fleeting moment, just like that exhale is a fleeting moment. Yeah, bank, flow, currency, exactly. Right? So just as that out breath goes out and the next breath goes in, we require both. Okay? So flow is recognizing that it's not that I'm going to be in this permanent Zen, creative state of being, right? That's not also, we're not like the ideal, the mastery, the human mastery is maybe living more of the time, accessing that state, living in that divine flow, right? But that's not all of it. The flow is also about recognizing I'm in a contraction, right? I'm having a low moment, I'm having a low mood, I'm grieving something, and to give ourselves permission to go there, to feel it, to be with it in order to expand, right? Hustle culture says expansion, 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 right? Or just be happy with what you have. No, it's both. It's this and that. It's intrinsically woven, weave together. So flow, real flow, being in flow with life is also being able to meet what is in the present moment. So yes, maybe that goal hasn't been realized yet, but what is in this moment? What resources do I have in this moment? What can I do? Why do I want to do that? Why do I want that thing? It's about arriving in this present moment and moving from here. Hustle goes just push forward, put your foot on the pedal and just go, no questions asked. But we grow, we evolve, we're organic organisms. My desires might change. In my 20s, all I wanted to do was travel and see the world and have as many different, colorful experiences as possible. And as I arrived to my 30s, like I find such tranquility and joy spending a Saturday at home in the garden pottering around my house. Like it brings me immense satisfaction. Does that mean that I don't have a desire to travel? No, it just means that those priorities shift and change, right? And priorities can shift and change in a day, right? Obviously, we have this idea of if we think about what our yummiest, most delicious goal is, right? What is that dream? What is that thing that's just out of reach, that's pulling me forward, that's allowing me to move forward, right? Beckoning me forward, inviting me forward, versus there's my goal, not even going to stop to ask what the cost is or if this is something I actually even really want anymore. I'm just going to keep going until the fuel runs out, which does. So for you, that space of, so I want you to get an imprint. I want you to get just a taste of what it feels like when you're in that flow state. Think of an example, write it down. What are some qualities of that space? And again, the more we're able to prime ourselves, the more accessible it becomes, right? So if the default setting, if the norm, the tendency is I'm more familiar with the hustle, the force, the push, that I have to, or the fatigue, broken, sick, I'm going to keep bouncing, ricocheting off into one or the other. And so what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to start to prime mind, body, spirit with what it feels like when I'm in flow with life. And like I said, flow doesn't mean everything's all amazing in this moment. Flow is, right? It's low tide right now, or it's high tide right now. And I'm in it. I'm with it. I'm meeting it as it arrives. Here's a hard moment. Here's a beautiful moment. Here's a painful moment. Here's a pleasurable moment. Everything is fleeting. Everything is transient. Nothing is permanent, right? And so really being in that divine flow with life is being able to meet the impermanence from moment to moment to moment to moment. So I just want you to get a taste of what it feels like when you're in that really amazing, like high flow state. Maybe time is suspended. Maybe your body feels weightless. Maybe you feel completely held by all of the fabric of existence, by God, by source, whatever. You feel fulfillment. Write down some of the words that you would be able to recognize. How can we recognize we're in that state? And now I want you to ask yourself, what would give you access to that space more often, right? Like we looked at the belief on the hustle side. If I believe that the only way to achieve success is to hustle, I'm going to hustle. If I redefine what success truly means for me, and every day I'm setting my sail, I'm pivoting just a little bit, I'm making micro adjustments to make sure that I'm aligning with that definition of success. And bring it down to the day. Was today a successful day by that definition? So for me, a feeling of, did I find joy and meaning in what I did today? That's a successful day. Did I spend time with my children? That's a successful day. Did I take care and nourish my body today? That's a successful day. And instead of gauging it always on this huge span of time, which again we can lose sight of very easily, if I'm looking at the top of the mountain but I'm not acknowledging the steps that I'm taking, it's very easy to feel disheartened and to give up, which is what we do a lot of the time as well, if we're honest with ourselves. It's too hard. It's for somebody else, that success, that's 7 figures, that house, all that. It's like, I want it, but I'm not actually going to do what it takes to get there. because the hustle culture says you have to do whatever it takes to get there. And what I'm inviting you to think about is that whatever is truly for you by your definition of what success and fulfillment, and that could be something simple like being able to go for a walk in the trees, right? And like I said, it will be different for every person. That's why I want you to really get curious about what this looks like for you. There's no one size fits all. What is important to you is shaped by your experiences, is shaped by your purpose, your passion, why you're here, what you want from your life experience. This one life in this body. Yeah. So get a clear reference, right? And then ask, what what would I need in order to access that space? What would I need to believe in order to access this flow space more? This is going to give you a whole lot of areas that we can do some real work on, right? Like the manifestation model says, just do all the inner work. But it's not necessarily, it's like, again, coming from that space of I'm broken, I need to fix myself, versus, ooh, here is a blind spot I want to get curious about to bring more awareness, more information into my frame of reference, right? Same thing, different way of looking at it, different result, different outcome. So if I'm just doing work in order to fix myself, what am I perpetuating? I'm perpetuating a sense of brokenness. If I'm going, what would I need to believe in order to access that flow state more? And maybe some things that come up is being able to trust life, being able to ask for support, being able to communicate my needs. Amazing. Now I'm aware of where to get curious, where to ask the right questions, where to start to explore and get a little bit curious about. What is stopping me from, if my most natural state, your most natural state is plugged into the flow of life, plugged into whatever you believe source to be, that is your most natural state. Everything else is an artificial manufactured blueprint, things that we've been told, things we've identified with, beliefs that we've taken on, okay? So all we're wanting to do really is to clear away in order to come back to what is organically, naturally there. Your creativity is given. We are creative beings. Our entire mechanism, our biology, everything about us is creative. We are creating new cells. We are rejuvenating. We create life. We create art. We create music. We create businesses. Oftentimes, as business owners, or people that are maybe more in the corporate sphere of things, we think that, oh, our work's not creative. Everything's creative. Thinking through a problem to find a solution is creative thinking. It's innovative thinking. Yeah. So if we start to see that as our most natural blueprint, our most divine natural essence, all we're really having to do is to clear away the artificial structures that have kept us or bound us to this idea of hustling. So fill in for a moment. I want you just imagine, what would it feel like to be plugged in and on to everything that's happening. So instead of something happens that feels bad, like your car breaks down, or a job falls through, or a client cancels, or something that feels like it's working against you that you need to now force your way through, what would happen if you believe that everything that is happening for you? A bit triggering? What if everything that is happening, even the painful things, right? So for me, with my burnout, I was so angry at my body that it was stopping me from being productive. But when I reflect now, what a gift my body gave me. What a gift my body presented in order for me to really slow down enough to ask the right questions, to be in a place now that in the times that I was more in pause mode, still doing the things, I earned more money, had more success than I did ever in the hustle. How bizarre. How bizarre is that? And so, again, if we don't have evidence that that's possible, we're going to keep defaulting to what we think will work. And we'll see little results every now and again that are like, yeah, see, it's working, it's working. I got that client, I landed that job, I did this thing. Oh, I see, it's working. At what cost? At what cost? When we come into flow with life, it is about recognizing that absolutely everything, everything is a potential lesson, is a potential gift, and it really comes down to how you choose to perceive it. Right? We know that even trauma is not what happened to us, it's what we do with what happened to us. Right? We look at people that are motivational speakers that have turned their trauma into triumph. Why? Because they chose to look at it in a different way. So for you, when you are in divine union with life, you are flowing, you are meeting whatever is coming up from moment to moment, whether it be pain. It's transitory, it will move. The pain is actually resistance to what is. As soon as we stop resisting and we soften and we find ease, pain dissipates. It no longer needs to be there. Anxiety is that beeping sound that we're not being embodied, that we're in our head, we're overthinking, we're literally mulling over all these things in our mind, but we're not embodied. We are here to be inside this vessel, inside this avatar, and to live the most yummy, expansive life we possibly can. And all the things that we see are possible for everybody else, if that's truly what we want, it is possible. But we don't have to force our way to get it. One thing that I also want you to think about is your relationship to patience. Because I know I definitely can be very impatient. I want things now. I get upset when it feels like it's taking longer than it should. And every single time there's such a beautiful gift in no, it's not ripe, it's not ready yet. An apple does not fall from the tree before it is ripe. It doesn't. You can pick it early, but you're going to be losing a lot of nutrients. You can go around forcing, picking, pulling, shoving. But we look at the state of the world with that energy, right? Pillaging, taking more than we need. If we are in flow with life, we're recognizing that things that are for us can't go past us, and things that are truly for us will happen when the time is right. And that does not mean sitting on my couch doing affirmations. That means that every single day I'm showing up in different ways. But if that result is not quite here yet, operative word, means that it's ripening. It's still in gestation, right? It's waiting to be birthed. I can't force that. If I'm, 6 months pregnant, I can't force that baby out right now. It's not ready. It's not ripe. If I pick a green fruit, I can get a tummy ache. So when we're in the flow with life, is we're recognizing that divine timing. We're recognizing that our impatience, again, is an invitation to come back into trust, come back to check our beliefs, check in with those beliefs. Do I really believe that this can happen for me? And if the answer is no, then to do some conscious work on that. But really, really allowing ourselves to come back into divine union with both of these polarities. So like I said right in the beginning, the hustle culture has some wonderful qualities. Imagine the hustle culture kind of like the masculine. I'm not talking gender, I'm not talking, gender identifications. I'm talking energetics, right? Energy. The masculine energy is drive, force, provision, protection, do, penetrate, go, right? The feminine is open, receptive, nourishing, mothering. It is preparing, creating. And we have both of these polarities internally. Even though we have a tendency for one, I've spent most of my life living in my masculine force hustle mode, and only really in the last couple of years have started to meet my feminine and actually see how powerful and witchy and magical it is. But we require both. It really is this marriage of these two polarities. Being able to take, yes, of course, we want to have a vision of where we want to go. Otherwise, if we wake up, we don't know what we're doing that day, we can wander around floaty aimlessly, which is what we see a lot in the sort of new age spiritual community, right? Is that we just want to be in the moment. That's great, but having an idea of what you really want helps to set that sail. It helps us to understand what habits am I forming. If I really want to have that house or have that family or do this, like what are the things that I could do every day that are going to build that, right? I can't just visualize a house and then there it is, right? It requires, whether I outsource that or not, right? It requires brick by brick, material by material, laying the foundation, building. It takes time. And so we want to have what is that thing? But that can't be the only objective. We can't be so hyper focused on the end result that we forget that between where I am right now and where I say I want to be, there's a whole beautiful journey of times, minutes, seconds, moments, hours, days, months that I'll never get back, that I can never relive. And that it's the real joy is being able to show up in every step. I'll fumble, I'll slip, I'll knock my knee, right? How can I find joy along that journey? And joy can exist. It's not like happiness that's only there in the good times. Joy can exist in pain, in nostalgia, in grief. We can find the beauty. We can find the gifts. We can find the lessons. So I'd love to hear from you what is coming up around this concept. I really want to share, just as much on it as possible, but also I know it can feel a lot, and I want you to just allow it to land in the body. If it resonates, amazing. Let it start to assimilate in your unique way. If it doesn't, let it go. That's fine. But really just starting to think about how you're showing up in the world, particularly around what we think we do. We tend to define ourselves by what we do, right? If someone says, "Oh, tell me something about yourself," we tend to say, "Oh, I'm a life coach. This is what I do," right? And not we don't really give as much value for who we are, how we are, how we operate, the intent and resonance behind what we do. And so really this idea of bringing these polarities of the masculine and the feminine internally is allowing us to flow more. Because if I'm met with a moment where I need to react and defend, I need access to that masculine energy, that drive, that force to hustle myself, get myself out of that situation. Need access to it. I don't want to eradicate it, right? When it comes time to being patient, I absolutely want to be able to access that feminine quality of deep trust with life and a beingness. We need to marry both. It's this union of both form and formless that create. That is creation, right? Masculine, feminine is creation. So if we're wanting to create in our lives, if we're wanting to access that flow state, like I said, which is the ultimate creative state of being, it's when I'm plugged into creation itself, it makes sense then that I would require both components that make life masculine, feminine, seed life. So, how am I working with these polarities? Which mode am I in? Nice question to ask yourself. What mode are you operating? And it's similar, right? We tend to, in the masculine mode, lean more towards the very proactive, active, doing hustle mode. And when we're just only in the feminine, we're a lot more passive, we're a lot more kind of open, just allowing things to kind of happen to us as opposed to like really like intentionally creating things. And so again, only existing in one of those extremes stops us from having access to both, and that juncture point is truly being in the flow, being able to have resources. So think of it like this, right? If we have the bank of the river and we have the river, right? If there was no bank, that river would overflow and it would create a flood. If there was only the bank and no flow, we'd have a drought. We'd have no water. So think of the masculine and the feminine really as that riverbank. We want that riverbank to be strong and sturdy and capable and deep and, able to hold capacity for that feminine flow, for that ability to move, to be guided, the intuition of knowing where to be, when to be there, right? We want access to both. So, yes, I can talk on this topic for hours and hours and hours, but I'd love to hear from you. Even if you're watching this on a replay, I will go back and I will engage in the comments. Please, yeah, please do share any thoughts or feelings that you have, or even any blocks that you have to this idea. Our triggers are our teachers. So if you feel quite a lot of resistance, get curious about that. What about it? What about some of these concepts do we feel resistance to? That could very well give you some information to work with. Thank you for being here. I just want to share a little bit about, yeah, how if this is something that resonates with you or something that you want to become quite want to play with, right? That you don't want it to just be an intellectual theory, which I think for many of us listening, you've probably heard these concepts before on some level, but how do we actually apply them? If that is something that you have been asking yourself, how do I actually embody this and make it practical? Then please do reach out. I do one-on-one sessions where we really go deep in being able to understand your unique blueprint, your belief constructs, and how to start to help you align to life, not just in one area, but in every single aspect of life. So, our first session together would be a mind mapping session where we really go in, we zoom into each of these areas: our relationship to health, our relationship to our emotional well being, our mental well being, our intimate relationships. How do we relate? How do we let ourselves receive pleasure? What's our relationship with money and abundance? How do we allow ourselves to receive nourishment? Our home environment, our work, job satisfaction, our relationship dynamics with family and social life, getting clear on that vision, helping you to craft that like an architect, craft that vision. And then really helping you to plug back into whatever you believe source to be. So if this is something that resonates, I'm going to drop my free connect call link below. Please do book a call. We can just meet. I can share with you a little bit more of how our journey together would look. Would absolutely love to support you on that. I also do have some self-study courses. I have the amazing Wayfinder journey, which is all about being able to navigate and use our emotions as an internal GPS, an internal guidance system to help us move through life with more flow. We all have this, we already know, right? We already know that intrinsic knowing is there. Like I said, all we're needing to do is move away the illusion, move away all the constructs that stop us from seeing that or stop us from knowing that. So Wayfinder link you'll find below as well. That is a self-study you can kind of do in your own time, We go through we meet our 5 core emotions. There's a lot of beautiful practical hypnotic exercises, somatic exercises that you can really just use as a reference to kind of revisit. It's kind of, I call it like the coach in your pocket. So if that's something that interests you. And coming up soon, I also have my full Life Aligned Legacy program, which is just the yummiest, most delicious experience. It is an 18-week journey in an amazing like minded community where we spend 2 weeks going deep diving into all those areas I mentioned earlier and really getting clear for you on what those beliefs, those constructs, all those things are, giving you powerful tools to make sure that you are aligning with that area. Because true fulfillment, we want to live the full life experience, right? So we could be successful in business, but if we're miserable in our relationships, we're still going to feel unfulfilled. So it really is about touching each one of those aspects and truly aligning with what you believe, like I said, what you believe success to be, what does fulfillment look like for you. But we do that as a group. It is a group coaching program. And yeah, that will be starting around July. So if you want more information on that, pop a message below. Really do reach out. I'm very focused, kind of more behind the scenes. I know that I have been a little quiet on social media, and it's something, one of my intents also by doing more master classes is really just, I'm working with my clients behind the scenes, and it's so amazing, and I'm seeing all these phenomenal transformations. But obviously, yeah, it's, if you don't know about it, you don't know what's going on up here in the Life Aligned Academy, then yeah, you wouldn't know. So I definitely want to be doing more of these types of things, connecting with all of you. And I also have my YouTube channel, the Life Aligned Academy, where I also share lots of tips and tools and free resources. So yeah, all those links will be in the description. And I'm just so grateful. I know it's only an hour and a half in. There's not many of you that were able to join live. Thank you so much to those of you that did, and thank you. I'm already seeing all these beautiful comments. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, and yes, let's do this again soon. Thank you, thank you. Sending you all so much love, and have a flowy rest of your day. I hope that the session has left you with lots of thoughts to contemplate, and yeah, maybe just some good questions to start to ask yourself, and a different perspective of looking at things. So yeah, hope it was beneficial to you. I am sending you all so much love. Have a beautiful day.